All right. We are officially in business. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. This is our weekly Power Lounge. It is your place to hear authentic conversations from those who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughn, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer of Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who work in digital and choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. You can learn more about us and join the movement at www.togetherindigital.com. Today, we are here to chat about how to nurture creativity and innovation throughout your career journey, along with our guest, Fernanda Albus. Fernanda is a graduate of Public Relations and Advertising with an Entrepreneurship and Innovation certificate from the University of South Florida. She currently plays a pivotal role in SAP's Global Communications Department as a leader in enterprise software. She leads global initiatives, including social amplification, media events, and internal communications. Outside of SAP, Fernanda has contributed to high-profile projects such as the music festival that we all know of South by Southwest in 2023, and worked. I wanted to go back and re-record this. uh,
Oh, good.
right?
Behind the scenes.
Unseen. I'll pick it up outside of SAP. Outside of SAP, Fernanda has contributed to high-profile projects such as the Music Festival of South by Southwest in 2023 and worked with the Guest Relations Department of NBA's Miami Heat during the 2021-23 season. During her time at USF, she served as the VP of Marketing for the American Marketing Association and interned with USF Athletics. Fernanda's passion lies in exploring human experiences, focusing on sensorial experiences and personal branding. Currently, Fernanda is pursuing an MBA because she's not done enough already, with a concentration in data-driven decision-making at Westcliff University, demonstrating her commitment to professional growth, which, I mean, you've got it in spades, Fernanda. Thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing your experience and story.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, Emmy. Glad to
Of
share.
course, of course. So your journey from graduate in public relations and advertising to the role you're in now at SAP Global Communications Department is pretty outstanding. Can you share a particular or pivotal moment or experience even that set you on this path, and how has it shaped your perspective on creativity and innovation in your career?
Yeah. Thank you so much once again for having me here, Emmy. I'm glad to share some insights, some ideas, some reflections, and also have this great conversation with you. But yeah, that was a great question, honestly, because I was like, okay, this could be something deep, but this could also be something like, okay, super like storytelling, part of my life. So my experience with that, I would say that right before graduation, my graduation in 2022, like a year ago, right? So not nothing that long, but a year ago, like basically I was about to graduate. So I graduated in May. In December, I think so I'm an international student, and I moved to the United States in 2019. So I left my parents, my sister, and all of that in Brazil. And so my parents helped me like the whole process in the university to like pay the bills and the accommodation and meals and all of that, even the university, the tuition, right? That was not cheap, like we know that. And then in December, basically I talked to my parents, and they said like, okay, Fernanda, starting in May, like forget us, not forget our pay slip, forget our contribution to you. So starting in May, you'll be taking care of your own bills, your own stuff. So okay, good to go. Okay. And then this was a little bit scary to me. I was like, okay, what's next, you know and this is something interesting when we put like in the perspective of creativity and innovation, because usually these are the times when you ask yourself, okay, what should I do, what's next? You start to challenge yourself, right? So I was like, okay, my parents, they said, okay, I should take care of myself, I should pay my bills, my apartment, my rent. And okay, what's next? And then that was when I started applying for a multinational companies.
Mhm.
And that was when I got this position at SAP. It was like amazing, you know, because I felt like, okay, this was the booster for me to realize that I should do things by myself, and the power of co-creation, you know, the power of doing your own stuff, you know, the power of creating, the power of innovating and trying to challenge yourself when it comes to like, you are always checking on how to make things like better, you know, how to get the best out of you, you know. So this was a great experience that I have. Potentially my parents don't even know about this, you know.
Yeah.
They just said like, okay, go ahead. And this
Right.
was something that, you know,
Yeah.
that was special to me, was like a mark in my life potentially.
It's an interesting and, moment for you personally, but it's relatable in the sense that it happens to all of us at some point in our career. And that might be because you suddenly lose the support of your family financially. It might be because you lose the support of a partner
Yeah,
financially. It could be because you lose a job suddenly. There's so many things that happen when we kind of get dropped on our butts that we have to sort of pull ourselves back up, and we can take it one of two ways, right? We can take it and sit and say, oh, now I can't move forward. Or you can say, like what you did, which makes you such an inspiring young professional. And it's like, okay, how can I make the most of this? How can I
yeah,
take what might be perceived as a setback and make it an opportunity um, to explore opportunity?
yeah,
And obviously you've been able to do that. It's a very brave thing to do. I don't know how many people can be like, I'm going to move to a whole other country and live on my own and go to school and learn the language and all the
yeah,
things. I've lived in one other country in my life, and it was English speaking, and there was still such a culture
yeah,
shock. While when I first got there, it took at least 6 months, if not more, for me to feel comfortable and settled in. So I
yeah.
can't even imagine like language on top of that, outside of culture, customs, like everything else sort of changing, and then not having family close by.
Mhm.
I had moved with my husband, so I would like had at least that support system as well. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for showing all the bravery and
Thank
grit,
you.
especially early on. And you and I
And
spent go ahead, yeah,
it's sorry,
exactly.
I was just gonna add something here, that as international students, and I feel that some people are gonna connect here, like we feel, and that's interesting. It's not just the language, but it's the sense of belonging. Something we're gonna potentially talk about it later on. But it's the sense of belonging, and also as internationals, we are always challenged to do more. You know, to prove ourselves. You know, like, okay, we are, it's like we have to be, we have to outstand, you know, we have to be different, because if we do the same thing,
Yep,
we are probably gonna have to come back home, you know.
yep,
So it's tricky, but it's part of the
sure.
process, and it's the
Yeah,
mindset that you
a
should.
little extra pressure on yourself. And I mean, I feel that to a degree, only because my dad immigrated from Egypt to the United States. And so, it even as the daughter of an immigrant, like there's this whole expectation that you come to America, it's land of opportunity, and
Mhm.
you make the most of it. So yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. And as I was saying before, you and I had some earlier conversations before this one. And you, again, I love that you brought this up again, because it's not something that you hear from folks that are just coming out of college, which was the importance of self-awareness in your career journey. Can you provide some of the insights into how being self-aware has helped you navigate some of the complexities of the professional world and, like you said, personal branding? Because I know that's a passion of yours as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so that's a great question. Like I try to look for some information about self-awareness, but it's basically means that you're aware of your own feelings, your own behaviors, right? So that would mean that, of course, this is something not just professional, it's completely personal, right? And how can we manage these two dimensions to get the best out of it, you know? So and then I look for some tips and tricks to how to become more self-aware, right? Because this is something that most of us think that we are self-aware, you know,
Yeah.
like I know what I'm doing, you know, what I feel and all of that. But
Mhm.
this is something sometimes that we should exercise,
Yeah.
you know. So writing down your feelings, writing down your tasks, writing down, and the power of writing down is insane. We cannot even imagine. So writing down our feelings, how am I feeling today, and how this correlates to the tasks that I had today. So the professional experience that I had today or this week, why am I feeling this way, and how this is related to an experience that I had, to a project that I have, to an event that I have to deliver. So writing down is super powerful. And this is interesting. I live with my roommate, and we have on the kitchen, we have like a small board that we put there. We call it like manifesting board. And this is interesting because we write down there every single thing that we want to achieve, like it could be anything. It could be like, oh, start a dancing class. We start, I don't know, get a new job, buy this book, and all of that. And it's interesting because we see the goals there happening,
Yeah.
like we achieve that,
Yep.
And it's good for us also to be grateful for that, so we feel like, okay, we see that it was achieved, so we can be grateful for it. If we don't see, like sometimes physically,
Yep.
sometimes we don't realize that much, so the power of writing down your feelings, your goals, your tasks in general, it's super important. And this is something I was mentioning before, like the power of co-creation, right? So writing down your goals and realizing like, this is my goal, and this is what I have to do to achieve this goal, and attracting this. The power of co-creation is also something insane. The power of collaborating with everything that is out there. And this is something we are probably going to talk about. NBA, South by Southwest. This is something. Okay, the event is out there. Everything is out there. It's a matter of mindset to realize, okay, I'm gonna go get it. So this is interesting to have in mind when we talk about self-awareness.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I think that is an important question to ask yourself. If I could go back, I'm guessing I maybe have something close to 20 years on you, but I think back to my early career, especially, when you are hardworking, ambitious, focused, and in an industry that does have a sense of competitiveness, in the sense that there's, only so many roles and opportunities and lots of people in the field, is how am I showing up? And you're right, like, personal development, it's something that I didn't really come into being aware of and practicing much of until I was in my mid 30s and my 40s. But looking back at myself then, and not really acknowledging how I was maybe showing up and what energy I was bringing, not to say I was like a jerk, or anything, but without being self-aware and without asking consistently for feedback. I'm sure there were times and places in which, based on whatever internal narrative I had going, the way that I was showing up and the way people were perceiving me was off in the way that I was maybe hoping to show up. So I think that's a really great question to be asking yourself early on. When you are hardworking and when you are ambitious, it's so easy to fall into the trap of overworking, not communicating, martyrdom, burnout, all of these things. So I love that. And I 100% agree with you. I can't remember the exact stat, but it's like anywhere from 30 to 80% more likely you are to do something when you write it down. So as far-fetched as it might sound, actually putting it up and putting it somewhere, not just where you can see it, but like you said, others can see it. I love that you and your roommate have that practice. Because again, like you said, it attracts opportunity to you, because now that your roommate knows your goals and the things that you want to manifest into your life and career, if she sees an opportunity for you, she's going to bring it to your attention, or a connection that can help you make it happen. Or you're going to be that much more intentional, like you said, about looking for the things out there in the world that you want to be doing. Like if you want to be working with a major sports team or on a major event, like it's out there, it's possible. You just have to actually start to think about it and work towards it. Let's talk for a minute about what we don't like in our career. Some people struggle with this, some people, it's an easy thing to come up with. How do you recommend we begin to explore and test new career paths, as we kind of consider where we're going, what we're doing? Obviously, the space we all work in is very fluid and dynamic, lots of roles. And how do we keep from glamorizing the unknown? I think sometimes that's another trap we fall into. Grass is always greener on the other side. So ways do you like to explore and test new career paths?
Yeah, that's interesting because when we think about knowing what we like to do, right? It's always good to answer also what you don't like to do, right? What is not for you, what is, and then you test, sometimes you test and it's just like, it doesn't make sense to me, and I thought that it would make sense, so that's interesting. I am passionate about sports industry and entertainment industry. And I started, as you mentioned before, I was an intern for USF Athletics, and it was a great internship. It was a great experience for me to understand, okay, this is the marketing, this is the production of the game, and we were there like hands-on and all of that. So it was great. It was a great experience because I could test, I could check, okay, what is out there, and the same thing with like South by Southwest and NBA Miami Heat. So I in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm gonna test first. This is, maybe I can fall in love with it and move on, but at the same time I can give up, and that's fine. It's fine to realize, okay, that's not for me. Okay, move on. This is self-awareness, right? So, and then the South by Southwest was a short experience, was like two weeks of event that I was like the stage crew manager. So it was a volunteer experience. It was amazing. It was a great experience to get to know the festival, the music festival, the conference, and to be in Austin. It was amazing. We're gonna cover a little bit about it later on, but it was a great experience. And also with the Miami Heat, it was for the season, that starts in November, in October, and then until May. So it was great, for me to be there, because in Miami Heat, I was like doing just for the game days, so I was guest service representative. So I was welcoming guests and hearing from them and understanding, what do they want from the team? What do they want from this arena? We have to deliver the best experience. So it was great for me to understand the daily tasks of an NBA team, and at the same time, and this was something interesting because I have already talked to some people before starting that position. It's like, okay, I was realizing that sports and entertainment industry, for example, it's a very time consuming, and it's like you work when people are having fun, resting, so do I want this for me? Maybe yes, maybe it's good because I'm having fun, my job is fun, but at the same time, perhaps this is not for me. Perhaps I want to rest, and want to have fun and work from Monday to Friday from 9 to 5, and that's it. So it's a matter of understanding, okay, does that work for me? It's testing, and that's the thing when we talk about glamorizing, right? We talk about, okay, maybe the fashion industry, maybe the sports industry. Okay, it could be fun, it could be amazing, but at the same time, maybe it's not that glamorous, right? Maybe we can find there a lot of things that we don't like, and okay, we can take insights from the experience and move on. And that's the great thing about like volunteering, right? That we have been talking about. Volunteering is a great opportunity for you to test the water, right? To make sure that this is the right thing for you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. 100%. Volunteerism is a great way. I would say that and job shadowing at like any stage or age in your profession, people pivot in their careers so many times. Like I talk to so many members within our community specifically that are in their 40s and even 50s that are making career changes and pivots. And so finding ways, kind of as you're saying, to test and learn before you make a huge change can really help you understand, is this for me? Is this not for me? And as someone who started out her first year of college, pre-med, I can totally attest to this. I worked in different medical facilities. I worked in nursing homes, hospitals, doctors' offices, things like that, until pharmaceutical research companies, until I learned whether or not that was the area and the space I wanted to be in, and fell in with the director of marketing at the pharmaceutical research company and learned, oh my gosh, I can get money, I can get paid and be creative. I don't have to be a starving artist. I can create art and ideas and writing and things that actually have an impact that's measurable. And that's where I started to nerd out, especially, and fell in love with digital, because you can see, like, you understand like how, when, and where people are responding. So yeah, I think finding your true love and your passion is a lifelong endeavor, and it's always evolving. And I love that even early on you have just taken it, those intentional steps through volunteerism specifically, to kind of test and learn. I think that's a great advice again for
Yeah.
anybody at any stage. I know Molly's in the chat listening with us on our live listening audience. She's like, pre-med. I guess I never told the story. Yeah. I was going to be Dr. Amy at some point.
Brave.
Well, and that was the glamorized thing, right? Being the daughter of an immigrant, I had several cousins and families. We were either doctors or lawyers for the most part. And so, a lot of my cousins were going to school for medicine, practicing law or accounting. That was another one. And, so I really wanted to do the family proud. And the idea, right? I love the idea of helping people, but also, it sounded very cool. And then it was very glamorized. And then I'm like, oh no, you have to work nights, weekends, holidays. It's emotionally, physically, mentally exhausting. So kudos to all of our healthcare workers out there. I kind of did it all, nursing assistant in a nursing home. That's very eye-opening. So yeah, recommend volunteering at a nursing home, by the way, y'all. If you ever get the chance, I highly recommend it. Anyhow, before I digress too much more, let's talk a little bit about analysis paralysis. This is a pretty real thing that happens when it comes to either taking a risk or decision making, about our profession. Do you have any examples, of your career journey where taking a calculated risk led to a really good outcome?
Yeah, that's interesting because I was gonna mention South by Southwest once again as an example, but the first thing I would add to this question is like I had a mentor that once he came to me and said like, Fernanda, be intentional, right? And this is something that I kept with you like my whole life, my whole life. And then he said like, be intentional with your choices, be intentional with the opportunities and experience that you have, so that's interesting because when we talk about testing and pivoting and all of that, it's about being intentional. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm gonna commit to this event because that's it, because this is what I have. No, try to think, to align the self-awareness, right, that we have been talking about. Try to align your feelings, your behavior to what you want, right? And to what is out there. What it makes sense to me. South by Southwest is something that I don't know, since 2017, I was like, oh, I want to be part of this event, I want to be there. And I was in Brazil, and I was like, okay, Austin is far, but be intentional with what you want, and South by Southwest is about creativity, innovation. It's a festival that is all about that. And for me, it was something that made sense, It's completely related to what I want, to what I like to study and all of that. So be intentional with what you want, And one thing I would add also is about Oprah has a sentence that she says like, basically, how can I serve? Right? How can I serve? And what is the next right move? So what is the next right move? So how can I adapt that to everything I do? So sometimes the risk taking is like, okay, this is a big project. This isn't like insane. It's huge. But how can I break it down into like tasks? How can I come up with, okay, what is the next right move? What I have to do for today, for tomorrow, and then we go and reach our stuff, our goals. So what is the next right move? Maybe the South by Southwest, for example, the next right move is applying to the volunteering process, to the ambassadors program. So, okay, the deadline is this. Okay, I'm going to do this until this deadline. And then I don't have to care about the huge amount of things I have to do for this project, but what is the next right move? And this helped me a lot when it comes to thinking about challenges and risk taking and adaptability. We have to be open to what's next. Without like thinking about the odds. Like because we are always gonna challenge ourselves and take risks and think, okay, this is, for me, it's impossible. But what can I do now to achieve this goal? So that's the point. And that's the great thing about establishing like short-term, long-term goals.
Yep.
Some people are against like long-term goals, right? And I feel I don't have a like a specific, a very clear opinion about it, but I think that the short-term goals are very important, are very what I have to do for today. The list of tasks I have is
Sure.
here, so I'm gonna, because if I don't focus on the tasks I have for today, I won't think about tomorrow at all. It's
Yep.
gonna be impossible.
Well, and I think many of us can kind of get bogged down in the to-do lists of every day. That if you don't spend the time intentionally planning what we call often, and then there's a book on it called it's BHAG, Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. If you're not creating those and writing those down, and as you were saying, break them into smaller steps, how do you ever expect them to happen? Because it's just so easy for us to become kind of, just attached, because our sense of worthiness, especially for women, I believe, is attached in our productivity,
Yeah.
which is not the case. You're so much more valuable than just being productive, that we really focus on our to-do list and short-term goals and never take the time to think for long-term goals. So I did want to make a quick mention, and I dropped the link for our live listeners, and we'll have it in the show notes as well. We've got an upcoming workshop in December that's all about creating a career path that leads to happiness. And you would love it, Fernanda, because she talks a lot about intentionality and values and, understanding the bigger picture goals and where you want to be. And what that does is it helps keep you falling into and falling prey to, as I mentioned earlier, analysis paralysis. I've been learning and kind of nerding out along with my therapist about decision-making models. We all make decisions differently, and some of us are very time sensitive in how we make decisions. Some people are very myopic and focused on like mining for information, and then they kind of just stay there, but they never do the bigger exploration. Some who just love to explore and speculate all the possibilities, but never do the research and never take the opportunity of the timing. So it's this whole balance of kind of being, one, self-aware of how you tend to fall into making decisions or not making decisions. So again, it comes back to self-awareness. Knowing, understanding what your decision-making style is going to help you work all of that into your favor. Because, I think that's another thing I've learned recently. If you're a coach or a mentor or a team leader, we're not all motivated the same. We don't all make decisions for the same reasons and in the same way. So understanding yourself, taking time to understand others in those respects will kind of keep you from sitting in a space where you're spinning your wheels constantly. Because I am a chronic ruminator, and yes, like the whole analysis paralysis thing has been my MO. I have had opportunities come my way that I just sit and stew on, and then years later, I'm like, what took me so long? Like, why did I sit on this? So if you're finding yourself delaying taking action, start looking into how you make decisions and really start to kind of work and play with that to see if you can kind of break those molds. Let's talk about another one of my favorite, often underrated career growth strategies, and that is networking. No surprise, obviously, I run and own an organization that focuses on empowering women through community and connections beyond networking, of course, but without it, it's to your detriment if you're not networking, by the way. Could you elaborate on the significant building of communities and a sense of belonging in the context of career growth and how it's helped you? And how can young professionals foster these connections in their respective industries?
Yeah, that's interesting. Because as I was saying, like as an international student, I was always looking for ways to belong, right? And this is something interesting about research that I made for the USF Athletics. It was about understanding the fans, right? Understanding what do they expect and how do they feel part of the team, And this is interesting because we want to belong, right? And Brené Brown says that in the absence of love and belonging, there will always be suffering, right? So she's amazing, right? So it's interesting to think this way because we want to belong. We want to feel part of everything, And this is interesting about the NBA Miami Heat because this is one of the insights I got there. Why are people here? Why are they here to what's going on? And we want to feel part of something. And the USF Athletics fans, I felt the same thing, how can we bring them to the games, considering they are part of communities, of associations, of the Brazilian Association or the American Market Association? How can we bring these organizations to be part of the college team, So this is interesting to have in mind, like, why do we have to meet new people, So, and when we think about networking, it's not a matter. Sometimes people say, oh, let's network and go to networking events and meet new people. But why? It's not just a matter of connecting to get like a recommendation, a professional recommendation, but also to feel part of something, to feel that we are like to fulfill ourselves some way, So, and as Brené said, is like, if we don't have sense of belonging, we will find suffering, we'll find, and a recommendation that I would have on that. So it's also personal and professional advice, is that once I heard, have one meaningful conversation every single day, and this was something that I got like for my life. And it was like, okay, did I have a meaningful conversation today or not yet? And try to find these people that would bring you this meaningful conversation. It could be even like, so with my roommate, could be anyone, with your husband or wife, could be anyone, but have a meaningful conversation that tries to that brings like this self-awareness, that brings you like this some reflections that you wouldn't have by yourself, So try to create these connections, having meaningful conversations, and at the same time feeling this sense of belonging. This is very helpful when it comes to networking and career growth. Does that make sense?
I mean, no, it absolutely does. It does. It does. And I'm glad that you already get it so well. I mean, I think that's a big goal we have with Together Digital, is to try to create more transformational connections versus transactional. I think that what feels kind of icky to a lot of us about networking is it feels like, oh, I'm just going to be promoting myself. It's going to be a one-sided conversation. It's about what I can get from them. Whereas, really, as you're looking more at community building, connecting on a deeper level, it is building a sense. If you're into personal brand, you have to be networking. People have to be able to meet you and know you, not just online, but in person, so they can understand your integrity, because that builds and establishes trust and respect. And then it's great, because what you'll find is that suddenly your reputation precedes you, because now who when they make introductions for you, it opens up such amazing doors. Because when somebody comes to me and says, hey, Amy, I would love to connect with so-and-so, would you mind making an introduction? That person that I'm going to reach out to is like, oh yes, I know and trust Amy, so therefore I know and trust that this connection that she's helping me make is going to be good. And it really, for women right now who are job seeking, it's critical that you're networking. Women are much less likely than men to network, and it's hurting us. It's like, it's perpetuating the gender gap, the pay gap, because we miss out on opportunities. 80% of jobs are not posted. 75% of jobs that are hired for are hired based on a referral. It's not always what you know, it's who you know. And if you're not taking the time to network and make sure people know what you do and what you do well, then your name won't get spoken during those opportunities, either internal or external. So I definitely agree with you. Networking is so key. Making it more meaningful is going to make it last and transcend all those job opportunities. And then just a quick note on the belonging and Brené. I mean, I agree. I'm such a fan of her work and the work that she's done for us all to give language and research behind a lot of the things we've all been feeling and not been able to articulate. But I also did a talk earlier this year on perceived loneliness. The Surgeon General has released several reports talking about how even just perceived loneliness, which means like being alone in a crowded room, which when you go networking, tell me you haven't felt that before.
That's true.
Loneliness, our brain doesn't know the difference between psychological and physical pain. It perceives it, our body receives it the same way. And therefore, because of that, perceived loneliness is like the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, they're saying. We used to say sitting was the new smoking. Now loneliness is the new smoking, apparently. And it can shorten our lives by up to 15 years. So by not putting into practice creating connections and communities, if you're not going to do it for your career, at least consider Even if you're an
Mhm.
introvert, just even consider just doing 5% more connection. Like you said, just one meaningful connection a day, something that's easy for you to do. Your health and your career will be thankful for it.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
true.
I'll jump off that soapbox, but we are so on the same page there. Let's dig into some of your work again, some more about with the NBA Miami Heat. How did that influence your perspective? And you kind of started to hint at it, so I want to dig in a little bit more of how that
Mhm.
influenced your perspective of fan engagement in the sports industry. Because you're right, people there, oh my gosh, that's such a community.
Yeah.
They're so engaged and involved and invested. What did you learn from your time working there and doing?
Yeah. It was a great experience for sure. It was insane, because I had the opportunity to observe, observe behavior, right? What do they expect? What are they doing here?
Yeah.
How many I don't know,
Right.
hamburgers they eat during the game, and hot dogs and all of that. So it was an observing, like it was all about observing, and it was interesting to feel this sense of belonging, as because we are all about emotions.
Yeah.
We are all about emotions, and how can we understand like that this sports industry could apply to any industry,
Mhm.
because we and this is interesting about Generation Z, right? We want to belong, we want to create communities, and we want to feel part of many communities. Sometimes, we have the Miami Heat fans, we have the co-workers, we have the roommate, we have the Brazilian Association, and all of that. So this was an interesting exercise to me. It was so emotional to like being part of this experience, in a season that we had the NBA finals,
It's exciting.
and it was so fulfilling, to understand how does that work, how this arena runs, and at the same time, like how impactful this is. Because if we think about, okay, did we win or lose, and this doesn't sometimes doesn't really matter. My day is going to be basically the same tomorrow, right?
Right.
But the sense of belonging, the opportunity to be there and to feel that we are all on the same
Yeah.
mindset. We all want to win, and we want to get closer to the athletes. This is insane. We want to, and that's interesting for even for sports organizations and teams and leagues. Like the fans want to feel part of it.
Yep.
They want to get closer to the athletes. They want to, if they have any opportunity to be in front of the athletes, they're
Yeah.
gonna make it. So that's interesting to think. And all the activations, all the marketing activations during halftime, like halftime shows and all
Yep.
of that, like inviting people to be part of the halftime. They are, of course, I want to be part of this. I want to try a shot there, and potentially I'm gonna fail it. And that's fine, but I'm there. I'm being part of this experience. I'm being part of this show,
Yeah.
and this is interesting about my passion to sports entertainment industry.
Ah,
I was in Brazil, and this is like, I would say it's under development, this like sports as a marketing thing,
uh-huh.
and I can learn so much from them here, because they really make this a show, a one once in a lifetime experience. You really want to feel like part of this.
Yeah.
And this is great for other countries, for other
Yeah, absolutely.
professionals to learn from.
It brings
Even
the whole
like,
town together. Yeah. Soccer
yeah,
is a great example of that too.
soccer.
Football.
Yeah, sure. So, and this is great about like working now for a tech company, SAP. We have this customer face experience and all of that, but sometimes it's hard for us to understand, okay, how can we bring this emotional side of the sports industry to a tech industry?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a matter of researching and understanding what are the right strategies, and what are the right approach, to this conversation.
Yeah.
That's
That's
interesting to
interesting. Yeah, no, exactly. I see it now, Fernanda. You're going to go get your PhD next, and that's going to be your dissertation. It's like fan psychology. I'm really
Yeah.
curious now. Like I want to start digging in and saying, what can we learn about fan psychology and start to apply it into establishing and building connections with communities and consumers? Because you're right, there's such a way in which sports bring us all together, make us feel united, make us feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. But then there's some sort of psychology at play here because one thing I was thinking of was, a friend of mine teaches advertising and PR at Xavier University.
Mhm.
Molly is actually, who's on with us today, is a former student of hers. She talks about parasocial relationships and how people who are not like directly connected to influencers, celebrities,
Mhm.
feel as though they know the person and actually
Mhm.
like in their brain from a psychological standpoint they believe they have a connection, that they are
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
Yes, her name is Dr. Leslie Rasmussen. If you all want to ever her up or her papers, she's come and done some talks with us. But yeah, there's definitely some psychology
Yeah.
and behavioral,
Yeah.
science at play. What kinds of how can you take that? And I love that you're bringing it into something like SAP,
Mhm.
software space, because again, those are two very would seem like desperate things, but I love bringing those things together. All right,
Yeah.
we've got a few more minutes left. The hour, as always, has flown. I'm going to ask a few questions, but I also want to make sure that we have time to let our live listening audience ask questions. So if you
Yeah.
do, drop it in the chat. I'm going to keep going and then we'll come back to the chat at the end. All right, let's see, where are we? Could you share an example of how you've applied creative thinking and adaptability in your work at SAP's Global Communications Department? And how have these skills benefited you in the enterprise
Mhm.
software industry? It's very different than the other areas we've talked
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. I have a project that we had a media trip basically to Waldorf last month.
huh?
And it was a great opportunity, to be on site with journalists and all of that. And but the first time they reach out, they said like, okay, we want to do a social amplification of this trip. How
Mhm.
can we do that? And then it was something that was completely new to the company. This is something that we are not used to have this approach on social amplification. It's about like internal and external coverage in social media and all of that. So it was a great challenge, because I was there on site recording some videos, some content for social media, and trying to come up with great content for SAP to use on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and all of that, right? It was a great opportunity. It was a challenge, of course, because it was something new. It was an approach that they usually they invited the journalists to cover the event and all of that, but they didn't have like an SAP owned social amplification approach. So it was a completely new project. So it was a great opportunity, as I said. And the point with that I would like to add, Emmy, is that sometimes you get much more questions if you are bringing something new. And this is the challenge of bringing something new. Of course, we get the people see you and respect you, like, okay, this is a disruptive professional, because they are bringing new stuff, new approach. But at the same time, the challenge is it's about like, okay, they are going to ask you, and they are gonna ask you, okay, how efficient this process is, how efficient this project is gonna, how great, like, what are the results of this. And if we are doing always the same thing,
Yep.
sometimes they won't ask you the results. Sometimes they won't like they won't ask you, okay, does that really works? But when we talk about bringing new stuff, you're gonna be exposed. You're gonna be asked like, okay, show you can do this. Show you can make it happen, and show the results, show numbers.
Yep.
And this was amazing. Because it was a great opportunity to challenge myself,
Yes.
bring new approach, and at the same time research and develop like tactics and strategies, because this is something good to mention. Information is everything. We like Google is out there. We have to get used to research. We have to get used to see, okay, what other companies are doing? What is out there? So we can, of course, we are not going to replicate, but we're going to get insights and make our brains like work okay, this is a path, but I can adapt this path and create something new. And this is cool. This is amazing about creativity and innovation, you know, because we can create new stuff based on what is already out there, you know, and but we have to be willing to research. We have to be willing to get information. You know, the information is out there. Even like international students scholarships, it is out there. You know, we have to find a way to get in touch with this information, because we can't complain about everything. We can sit and say like, oh, there's nothing for me out there. If you don't, if you research and take time to do your job, like do your work and sit and Google it, you know, this is gonna.
I mean, so much more information is at your fingertips nowadays too than like when I was in college. I literally just had to like work around in different places until I learned and understood. I went to a small high school in the middle of nowhere where the guidance counselor gave you 4 options of what you could do with your life, including being a housewife and a mom, which I thought was, I'm like, okay. Yeah, there's so much more information to explore. It's very inspiring to hear you speak about that. And also the fact that like, I just jotted down as you were speaking, it just occurred to me over my years of experience that strategic disruption is what keeps you relevant. I think being able to innovate, disrupt in a way that is well thought out and intentional, the way that you stated it, really does, because that is going to be something that you'll struggle with at some point. You're not the shiny new thing in the workplace, and women in particular begin to become marginalized either after motherhood or by their mid-30s. So I think getting into the practice and the habit of being strategically disruptive and always bringing new thinking to the table continues to provide value and relevancy. All right. We've got one more question. I'm excited I get to ask it, even though if the guys have a question, feel free to chime in, but y'all are staying quiet. So I'm going to ask this one since there's time. You know, Gen Z is a pretty big focus as it's a growing demographic. They're aging and whatnot, and entering, you know, the area of having the buying power. It's obviously an ever-changing landscape that is marketing and consumer behavior. How do you see the next generation, particularly Gen Z, reshaping the future, and what trends and shifts are you observing? I'm so excited to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I wrote an article for Ad Age, the advertising channel, and it was basically about Gen Z and the Women's World Cup, right? And how this new generation is consuming the games, you know, and the event in general, right? So this is interesting because some reflections that I put there was related to topics such as community building, and also like authenticity, and also the way that, like, for example, we are not just in the game, we are using social media, we are everywhere, you know, we are in many media channels, you know, that we can get different perspectives. And this is interesting also about sense of belonging. Once again, you know, we want to feel part of it, and we want to feel that the athlete there that is playing makes sense, and that I match my values to the event and to the athlete that's there. You know, I want to feel that the values of the Women's World Cup make sense to me. You know, and this is very important, not just for sports industry, for soccer, but for every single industry. You know, this new generation, we want to understand that, okay, this is something that makes sense to me. You know, this is something that I'm not gonna buy something that is not sustainable. You know, I'm not gonna buy anymore, consume like content from someone that is not like respectful, and someone that is not like someone that I believe that is good for society, you know. So the same thing about like vegan community, vegetarian, right, and things like that. We are all about understanding the purpose, right? Understanding the purpose of the industry, the company, and consuming based on what we truly believe, you know.
I love it. I think that's one of the things I admire most about Gen Z, because I'm a zennial. I fall like right between millennials and the Gen X. Is you don't mindlessly consume, and I think that's so important for the future. I love that Gen Z has kind of, you know, held up that torch and that behavior, because I think it's essential for all of our future. We did get a question in from Molly. So she's also a recent new grad and going for her MBA, I will note. So you guys should just connect at some point and do a coffee chat. I think you guys would hit it off so well. Do you struggle?
Perfect.
Question is, do you struggle with imposter syndrome amidst all of your incredible accomplishments at such a young age? And if so, how do you cope? If not, any tips for those that do experience it?
Honestly, yes, of course. We all, it's not, I don't know if I would say that it's imposter syndrome, but it's like we ask ourselves, we ask ourselves, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing my best? What is my value, right? We always ask, sometimes we ask ourselves, what is my value? Am I following the right path? And this is natural. We are all human, so this is part of the process. We are going to ask ourselves if we are on the right path. And that's the great thing about what we mentioned on writing down your everything, your feelings, your behavior, but your tasks, your to-do list, and take a time to be grateful. Take a time to understand and internalize, whoa, that's a lot. That what I have already achieved, that's a lot. That's great. What is the next right move? Of course, but stopping for a moment and understanding, okay, what have I already achieved? And that's the great thing about self-assessment, that you write it down, your qualities, your abilities, your skills, can be soft and hard skills, and understanding, okay, this is the capabilities I have, and that's great. Like I can visualize, here is my list of things that I'm doing well, and that's great. And at the same time, okay, what is next? What do I want to learn next? Be open to this kind of things. But of course, we are always asking ourselves, so if we could do more, if we could be like, what is our value? So I think it's a matter of being kind to yourself, and understanding, okay, here's where I am and here's what I want to go. But at the same time, what I am right now, this is amazing, this is great. So self-assessment it's a great tool, to understand that and to be grateful.
Love it. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the question, Molly. I've been talking to imposter syndrome comes up all the time, and I'm kind of falling in love with this idea of women who choose to just reject the term altogether, because what it implies is syndrome. Like there's something wrong with you. Like it's a sickness. Yeah. It's not a sickness. You're not going to find it on WebMD. You're not going to have physiological symptoms. It's literally, in my opinion, the product of societal conditioning and the ways in which the world has told you are not enough. And the way that I like to combat it is through naming it. So whenever I have that little nagging voice of, oh, Amy, you're here and you're getting this, but you're not deserving, which is the definition of imposter syndrome, is I kind of just give that that voice a name. Mine is Janice, the sadly R.I.P. Chandler, Matthew Perry, like his girlfriend, the one with the nasally voice, like that nagging little voice. That's what I named it, and that's because of what it sounds like to me. My 10-year-old daughter called hers Farty McFarterson. I don't know why. But giving it a different name reminds you that it's not your true voice. It is not your true values and what you really think of yourself. Because I think if you were to sit down and, like you were saying earlier, do that self-assessment and maybe write it out, you wouldn't say these things to your best friend. You wouldn't say these things to your daughter or your mother or whoever. So why would you say these things to yourself? So I love that idea of just consistent self-assessment, naming it if you need to, and then kind of just shirking it and saying it's not real. Imposter syndrome is not really a thing. We're not going to die from it. And as my other friend that I've quoted her so often on this one, and I know somebody else said it first, but Lucretia often have all of the confidence of a mediocre man named Chad. Sorry, Chads. But seriously, there are people out there who know half as much, do half as well, and have all the confidence in the world. Nothing wrong with humility, but definitely continue to stay self-aware and just know you're doing your best. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Fernanda, for all of
Sure.
your great advice and sharing your experience. I'm excited to keep watching and listening and hearing about your journey because you're early on, and I just see so many amazing things ahead of you. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thanks for being with us this week. It's been wonderful. We're going to go ahead and wrap, and we hope to see you again next week. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye, everybody.